Thank you so much, Lila. It's my pleasure to be here today and talk with you about putting this year, 2020, into perspective. There's a few things I'd like to basically cover today with you. And usually, when I do webinars, I'm coming from it from a pedantic perspective, give people some tips and considerations in their psychotherapy world and understanding the body, mind, spirit issues. But today I'm actually coming to you from a human to another human. And that's really the gist of where I would like to have this conversation is for us to sit back and reflect together what 2020 means to us personally, professionally, and socially. I've given a lot of thought to this over the last couple of weeks when I was asked to wrap up our 2020 Nourishment webinar series with this talk. And to think that New Year's Eve is just tomorrow and how we're going to spend that time together. And I just wanted to take a moment for us to take a deep breath and think about all of the events that have happened this year and how they have impacted us. And one of the things that's very, very clear to me is that this COVID virus, in my words, is the great leveler. It really is the epitome of an indifferent nature. And what I mean by that is we spend so much of our days and our energy as human beings doing upward comparison and downward comparison. And we live our life making sense of things around us and putting things into nice, neat little categories. We think about each other and ourselves in terms of our education, our gender identity, our sexual orientation, our religion, our political affiliation, our race, our culture. And this is how we see ourselves in the world. And it makes sense because we've studied this as psychologists forever on how people think about themselves in the world and how they move in the world and judge other people or make sense of their relationship with other people. And for the first time in probably 100 years, COVID has come to us and it's exposed to us the reality that there is no major differences. In fact, COVID doesn't discriminate. It didn't discriminate, and it continues not to discriminate. And what I mean by that is not so much at who's more at risk or not. It's more along the lines of having been impacted by COVID, either directly or indirectly. As a matter of fact, every single one of us on this planet, over 7 billion people, for the first time can look around ourselves and realize that we have all been impacted, every single one of us. As we're nearing 2 million people dying from this disease, it gives me pause to think about what really matters in my life. And I'm hoping that you'll explore that with me today as well. What matters really in your life? Because we have been impacted either directly or indirectly by losing someone we love. Either we've lost someone dear to us or we know somebody who has lost someone dear to them. People have gotten sick from it. We know that indirectly and directly, people have lost their jobs, people have lost their homes, businesses have closed. We know everybody from a 6 degree of separation experienced somehow. And this is happening throughout the world. So at the end of the day, it makes me wonder what's really important. For the first time, we are seeing each other more of the same than we are different. And my thought is, what would the world be like if anybody watching this right now were to stop and think, how would it feel right now if I were to think that I am more alike people than I am different from people? And how do I want to interact with those people in my life? All the people that I thought were above me or below me. How would I want to interact with that, knowing that COVID sees them no differently than it sees me? And what kind of impact can I have in the world? In other words, mortality has presented itself to us this year stronger than it ever has, especially in my life. For the first time, many of us are faced with the reality that, yeah, we're all going to die at some point. And I don't know about you, but that's always been a thought forward thinking for me, that I'm not going to think about that right now because I'm busy on the treadmill of my life. working and upward comparing and downward comparing as I go. But now COVID comes, and all of a sudden, I'm hearing things on the news about people saying, I was just with my dad last week, and now he's gone. I don't know about you, but that really strikes a chord for me because I realize that this can happen to me too. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking about how precious, how fragile, how amazing life is. And how am I really living my life right now? Am I living it to my ultimate potential? Am I using the energy that I have to live a very fulfilling daily life? Am I using that energy more to worrying about things I can't control? Am I using that energy in a way that is feeding into my depression, that I feel so hopeless in this world because right now everything with the goodness of the vaccine, but things are still happening around us with life loss and people working themselves to point of burnout. So these are the perspectives that I want us to take, is to see what COVID has brought us, not so much about what it has taken away, because it has taken so much from us. But the reality is suffering is inevitable. Mortality is inevitable. And knowing this secret, knowing that it's there in the forefront of our consciousness, how do I want to spend what little time I have left on this planet? It might be a year, might be 10, might be another 20 years. I don't know. None of us really do know. But what we do know, what's in front of us, is how do I want to spend my life energy on a daily basis? A lot of us need help right now, and a lot of us don't ask for help because we're ashamed. A lot of us can give help right now, and many of us can still give help, but needing the reciprocity of appreciation for giving that. But if we see each other as just nothing more than another human being who has been suffering from this virus almost the same as I have, all of a sudden it opens up the way I look at my fellowship, those who I work with, those in my family, those in my neighborhood, those in my friends. And I'm just hoping that maybe we could all sit back and think about this for a moment, to think about our humanity and how we might be able to help others who are asking for help, or maybe to have the courage to reach out and ask for help if we actually need it. I don't know about you, but I wonder what the world would be like if we could all stop for just a moment and see what's in front of us right now because of COVID. We do this thing at Sierra Tucson for our patients. It's called a burning ceremony. And what the burning ceremony represents is we ask patients to write something on a small piece of paper, to let something go in their lives that they've been carrying around as a burden. And I think about how I want to celebrate my New Year's Eve, because I don't know about you. I was really hoping to just celebrate New Year's Eve and say goodbye to 2020. And the reality is most of us can't do that, right? We have to stay indoors. It doesn't matter what country we live in. We have to be careful. So what if we had our own little private burning ceremonies with our families tomorrow night as a way of celebrating the end of this year? And so the burning ceremony is using fire, obviously. So if we have a fireplace or an outside fire pit, if we're in a high fire danger zone, it makes it a little more difficult to actually have a burning ceremony because of safety concerns. But the idea here is to put forth in the fire something that you want to let go. And what I mean by letting go is not to let go of something and hoping to forget about it, but to let go of the burden that this carries for you. So if you've lost someone in your life and you are deeply grieving this right now, we don't want you to go ahead and put that into the burning ceremony. That's not what we're talking about with regard to letting go. But what we're talking about is carrying the burden of that suffering that may not be supporting you as much. In other words, allowing yourself to grieve and live at the same time, and how much we need to honor that process for ourselves, because we've all lost quite a bit. And some of us are still losing, and some of us are still dealing with threat because of the COVID. So if we did our own burning ceremony, is to write something down that we don't really need to carry the burden of it with us anymore. We hold on to the memory of it. It remains part of who we are. The other aspect of the burning ceremony is to also include something that you want to cultivate more so in your life. And in this regard, something in 2021. What do you want to see more of in your life? Do you want to see more grace in your life or more compassion? Do you want to have more courage to deal with something that you've been putting on the back burner because you've been so busy on the treadmill of life and been trying to get through this year of COVID? So there's a number of things that we can consider that we want to cultivate as well. And that also goes into the fire. But what's really important about this burning ceremony is to know that it's a non-dominational act. Okay? It really is using fire, which has been given to us by our God, whether it's Yahweh or Allah or Christ, right? Or the Great Spirit. Fire is fire. And we know fire can be very healing. It can be very protecting. It can warm us, but it can also be destructive. So we want to have respect when we do these burning ceremonies. So for example, I had a burning ceremony with some colleagues a few weeks ago because we needed to put an end to the struggles that we have been dealing with COVID. And because I was dealing with mortality this year, realizing, oh my God, this could happen to me. I could be that dad that passed away who was in good health. But I had been carrying with me this worry about dying. And so, for example, and just to share and disclose, on one of my sheets, I wrote, I want to give up the fear of death because it's inevitable. And it was just causing more burden and worry in my life. So to put that into the fire and then to watch it catch fire and create smoke that goes up into the universe or into the night sky, or I give that to God to take away from me, to relieve my burden. It was a very healing experience. And in a lot of ways, we shared this with each other around the fire, and some of us kept some of the things we wanted to burn secret. And that was the beauty of it, to be accepted on what we shared, to hold sacred space with each other as we shared it, and also to be together to witness letting that go and the power of community with regard to that. So putting your year into perspective and taking an accounting or an inventory of things that have gone wrong for you, people you love, and their life as well. But to remember at the end of the day, you and I are more alike than we're different. And as how I want to be treated as a human, I want to bestow the same thing to you as I treat you. And if our world could come together for just a moment in time and realize that this COVID has been a great leveler for us, to bring us all together, to be part of this human race, this collective whole, as we have stumbled through this disease, looking for help, using and relying on first our caregivers and the front line and those working so hard to get the vaccines, and the governments trying their best to organize and to help deliver all of this to all of us in the world. But to step back and to see us working as a unified whole and not a divisive group or an us or a them. What would your world be like if you were to take a moment and just think about it from that perspective? The burdens that might be lifted from you, the resentments maybe, the anxieties. So that's some of the food for thought that I wanted to share with you today, and how we might want to look forward to 2021 with renewed hope and possibility, and allowing ourselves the forgiveness and the time it requires for us to heal with the constant trauma and chronic stress that we have been going under as a human race. But to have that kindness for ourselves as we would for others, because you really never know what's been going on in another person's life when you first meet them. And just to keep that in the back of your mind the next time you work with family or your clients or speak to someone you love, but to give each other this opportunity for some quiet reflection and to hold time together to let that go, at least the burden piece of it, and never forget what you've learned this year. And with that, I'll go ahead and see what the questions are. I think we have time for one question, so I'll see what we've got over here. So this is a really good one here. This one says, can we do the burning ceremony over Zoom? Why not? What a great idea. One of the things I think about when I would Zoom with people I love, because I have a son, so we'll probably do ours tomorrow night, just the two of us. Maybe we'll have a neighbor come over and put our mask on. But you know what? You're right. We've been Zooming all year long. So how do you do a burning ceremony over Zoom? I think one of the best ways to go ahead and do that is to gather those people who are willing to do it and perhaps write out on a piece of paper or email somebody who's going to be the moderator to collect your wishes or your things that you want to give up, your burdens you want to give up. It makes me think about the fact that we, Sierra Tucson, did a virtual Zoom several months ago when we had one of our celebrations for our patients who have gone on into recovery. So we had a recovery weekend. And you can find the virtual Zoom on our website if you want to get some pointers on that. But what I would suggest is that you find out who wants to participate for one thing, and then you have a moderator of the Zoom, right? One person in charge. And that person in charge could be the one who also has the fireplace in their home, right? And so if you can get everyone to participate on things that they want to let go, burdens they want to let go, to email you that, and then you could be the one in charge to cut those pieces of paper after you print those emails, or write them out through a phone call, and perhaps something that you want to cultivate more in your life. But the idea here would be to have some rules of like how much do you want to share with everybody on the Zoom call and who you want to not want to share with, or you just want to keep it private, but knowing that your message could be burnt in sacredness with the person with the fireplace and everyone witnessing that to go up. And the thing about Zooms, as much as I love them, there's constant interruption when people want to say something. So that moderator may want to have some ideas of how we want to take our turn and raising our hand, and so we could all have nice, smooth transition while we do the Zoom ceremony. And I just think that's a brilliant question, so I really appreciate you doing that. So with this, I bid you all adieu and a blessed, wonderful, healing 2021 and a moment of time of reflection even throughout 2021 as we still work together as a collective humanity towards recovering from this COVID, that we're not alone in this process, and to remember that we are all in this together. It's been an honor, and Happy New Year.